Good evening, everybody. It's a captive audience going live here on Wonderful Wednesday with my pal, Sonny Danforth. Say hello, Sonny.
Hi, right now it says I'm Don Anderson.
Uh, hmm. Well,
There's
hey,
two Don Andersons.
how did that happen? I suddenly got you
I
looking
don't know.
and
I
grew
don't
hair.
know, but I'm going to change that real quick, pal.
I
I
want you to
didn't catch
know
that.
I used to have a lot of hair, but not nearly that much. Well,
Uh,
I'm glad to be here. Always glad to be here with Sonny. And wow, do we have a lot to talk about?
yes, we do. We always say on Wednesdays that the news, it just keeps on coming, but it has exploded.
Well, as usual, the radical left is a gift that keeps on giving. And boy, did it give last week. But before jumping into it, I thought it'd be great to start off with a little history story. You all know how much I love history. And I think this is such a fun story. And what it revolves around is conspiracies. So, of course, one of the things that people are constantly accusing a lot of us conservatives of is, oh, it's just a conspiracy theory. Everything's a conspiracy theory. And then they can use that label to diminish any arguments that you might make. When the reality is conspiracies happen all the time. And basically your only judgment here is whether is determined whether there's credibility. Because conspiracies, pretty much everything started with a conspiracy. I mean, Henry Ford conspired to start Ford Motor Company. 56 protesters conspired to sign the Declaration of Independence and start the United States of America. 12 apostles conspired to start the church, right? So conspiracies happen all the time, every time. It's just a matter of which ones have credibility, because we all know there are some that are just incredible, that they don't make sense. There's others that are supported by the evidence. So you got to look at the evidence. That said, I'm going to take 2 minutes to give you all a quick little history overview that a lot of people don't know, and then we'll launch into the current day. And this is the conspiracy to assassinate Abraham Lincoln. Very few people are aware of this story. I first stumbled across this in like the 8th or 9th grade, and I was absolutely fascinated by it. So the story you basically learn in your history books is that John Wilkes Booth assassinated Abraham Lincoln, jumped off the stage on April 16th, 1865, I think it was, and broke his ankle and yelled "Eta Brutus," I think it was, and then limped off the stage. And there was a 2-week chase to catch him before they finally did catch him. But it didn't catch him. They trapped him in a barn. He basically gets shot and killed in the barn, and then burned to death. And that was the end of John Wilkes Booth. But what a lot of people don't realize is that about 3 or 4 months later, they wound up hanging 7 or 8 other people for the conspiracy, not just to assassinate Abraham Lincoln, but that night, those people had conspired to assassinate Abraham Lincoln and his entire cabinet. So the conspiracy was to assassinate Lincoln. Seward, who was the Secretary of the Interior of Seward Icebox fame, the guy who ended up purchasing Alaska. I can't remember the name of the Secretary of Defense at the time. So the Secretary of Defense, I think he got stabbed. The guy who was going to kill Seward got drunk and turned around and didn't get the job done. The Secretary of Defense got stabbed, but he didn't die. So those guys got hung. The woman who kept them in her hotel while they were preparing for this assassination, her name is Mary Surratt. She ended up being the first woman hung under federal government in the United States. So wow. That was that. Dr. Mudd, where we get the term "your name is as good as mud," that came from the doctor who helped Booth escape and fixed his broken leg so he can continue to run. They didn't execute him. He got off with I think an 8-year term. And then one last funny part of this story, which is always a fun thing to keep in mind, one of the guys escaped, got across the border to Canada, got a ship to Europe, and by the time the American government finally tracked him down, he had gotten a job as a guard at the Vatican. You can't make it up. You cannot make this stuff up, right? So you can look this up. You can Google it, YouTube it, whatever. But so when people tell you that conspiracies don't happen, there's a very incredible one that did happen that very few people know about, which is a great segue into this assassination attempt that happened. Now, none of us knows if this was a conspiracy or not. And obviously not enough time has gone by, but wow. I'll stop there. And Sonny,
I thought you were on a roll there, but so I'll tell you, with what is coming down the pike now? What's the awareness? We're going to learn more about what happened with Trump and the follies of the Secret Service. You know, it was like Keystone Cops here of why, and I hate to even say that because I really respect the Secret Service, but somewhere, somehow, and some way, there was a huge error that happened because as I've read today, and I don't have a story here to that effect, but I've read today that the Secret Service had encountered this young man a couple hours, 2 3 hours before the event. He had a rangefinder in his backpack. He went to go to enter inside, and the Secret Service denied him going in. So he was forced to be on the outside, and but to not have one of the most closest buildings not be covered at all. And the police have said, you know what? It's the Secret Service's job to surround that. And we told the Secret Service that we didn't have the manpower to do, all of that. And what I already, what Kevin and I covered on Monday is that only one of Trump's permanent Secret Service officers was there with him. The rest of them were all temporary. And it's,
it just strains incredulity. On the one hand, you want to believe that they were just incredibly stupid and inept. That would be the best thing that you could say. Having said that, how in the world does a 20-year-old get access to a vantage point? What was 130 yards? Which, from everybody you talk to, will tell you, for anybody who's without even much training, that's an easy shot with a rifle.
Yeah.
To get access to that is unbelievable. And we're in the era of drones. And you mean to tell me that the person carried a ladder, leaned to this side of the building, crawled up the building. People that were eyewitnesses were yelling and calling the police and pointing up there, and nothing happened. It's hard to. I want to believe it was like a sole shooter, a single guy who did this. I'm having a hard time. I'm just having a hard time. I want to believe that Oswald was a single shooter too, and I'm having a hard time with that one 60 years later.
Right. And so from the Washington Post, Hot Air says the Secret Service knew the building wasn't secure. This is today at 5:20 p.m. Okay, this article. And so they're saying that the Washington Post reports the agency's been informed that local law enforcement did not have sufficient resources to secure the building from which the shooter took his shots. And yet nothing wasn't done to ensure the most obvious vantage point to which it could have happened, And so Secret Service told police, the Secret Service was told by the police that they couldn't watch that building. And so that means somebody has to be there. And for those that watched the whole thing unfold, and I've just posted this story in the comments there, you come that it looks like the National Guardsmen, got military guys with helmets on and full everything, full camo, and they're like they're going to combat. Why weren't even some of those people? They were there clearly on the ground.
Yeah, it's incredible.
It is like, incredible. It's God's will that Trump is still alive.
Oh, if you're not a believer in God, then that ought to, I don't know what else. I mean, we're talking a half an inch, a quarter inch.
Yes.
It just happened to turn his head.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. And then there's a few other things about this that, again, I'm not trained in this area. It's just the common sense kind of stuff. If I'm guessing most of you were alive when the assassination attempt happened on Reagan. And we all remember how the Secret Service tackled him immediately, got him in the car, and they were out of there. You look at what happened with this thing. He gets shot. He goes down. They let him stand up. I'm glad he got the great thing with the fist pump, and he was able to say that. That was an iconic moment for sure. But there
Yes.
is no way he should have been allowed to do that. I mean, there was another shooter in the audience that gave them another clear shot. That the
I
Secret
agree
Service,
with you.
yeah, it's just crazy. And then the other side, this is where we have to go to the whole DEI thing. They had women in the Secret Service who were like, what? Trump is a big man, like 6'3" or something. How in the world is she going to cover him? It was
Never.
just,
She couldn't. She
yeah.
couldn't.
I'm just watching this thinking, hey, this is not an anti-woman thing, but it's certainly an
No.
anti-short woman thing. I
Yeah,
mean,
you know what? They better be Amazons. If you have the person that is over 6 feet tall, that is your subject to protect, by golly, you better be about the 6 feet tall at least.
yeah,
I
I mean,
said that on Monday, and you know what? Women are capable, maybe, because I'll tell you, Don, you know what? I believe women can do just about anything, but there are some things that women can't do because let's just say, God forbid, that everybody got mowed down there except that one woman. She
mhm.
could not have carried one of those men.
No, yeah, it's
Okay.
just,
So you want somebody who is a first responder, which is
mhm,
what they are, Secret Service, in that line. You want somebody that I would want somebody that could carry me and handle whatever it is. And you know what? Kudos, she's got a job, but you know what? She could have been a sniper, right?
yeah,
She could have
right,
been a
right.
sniper. She didn't have to. All she has to do is be able to carry the gun because they're heavy.
Yeah, well, you put them in positions that make sense. I mean,
Yes.
clearly she didn't have the physicality to be there. And then there's a whole training piece. Again, I'm no trained expert, but you got one of them going back and forth. She couldn't even holster the gun. If you're watching that, she's like trying to.
Yes.
It's like Keystone Cops. They're going back and forth. Like, what am I supposed to do? In fact, it might have been picked up on a mic. What do we do now? What do we do now?
Yeah.
Which is, it smells so much like DEI hire. I'm sorry, it
I
just
know.
does.
It is.
And
And
then to hear the interview with the head of, I don't know how she still has that job, by the way.
I don't
And she
either.
and she's promoting that this was her deal, was to get as many women in this thing as possible. And then she's saying things like the reasons why they didn't have somebody up on the roof was the roof was sloped too much. Are you
Yeah.
kidding me? The roof had the slightest amount of slope possible. And I don't care if it was a steeple, you still have a cop up there. It's, I don't know.
Oh yeah. That's an excuse that does not fly.
No,
And
it
she
does
clearly doesn't know anything about sloping roofs, or
no.
she, in my opinion, would never have made that statement. And Lori says, how the heck will they protect Barron? Right? Or
Yeah.
Eric. Hell,
Oh, yeah.
Eric is like 6'6" or 6'7", and Barron
Right.
is taller than Eric.
Yeah, and here's the thing that makes it smell even more. And I just posted a link on this. They refuse to give RFK any protection. Now think about the immorality and the utter inhumanity of refusing Secret Service protection for a presidential candidate who lost his dad and his uncle to an assassin. These people
Yes.
are sick, man. And then as soon as this happens, Trump picks up the phone and calls him and says, give RFK protection. And the next thing you know, they give RFK Jr. protection. That is one ugly look.
Yes, it is. And now what else is coming out is there is an Iranian plot to assassinate Trump. If you
Well,
hadn't heard about that, US intelligence uncovered an Iranian plot to assassinate Trump weeks before the attempt on his life on Saturday, according to several media sources.
mhm.
And this I'm quoting from PJ Media. Also, this is the worst that I've heard so far, and learned it today, Don, is that 30 minutes before Trump went on the stage to speak, they knew about the threat, and they still allowed him to go on the stage and speak.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
threat should have been cleared, and
Mhm.
then you allow the president to go speak. The presidential candidate, the presidential nominee, the former president of the United States.
and,
So,
and and you wonder why people think about conspiracies.
oh yeah,
I,
yes.
you know,
This is this is really, it's bad. Now I'll tell you, I'm going to post this video. I'm going to post this thing from PJ Media, and watch it sometime because it's pretty cool. And it is when Trump arrives at the ER, and at the ER and the people inside the emergency room, there's windows, right? And they've heard that Trump has been shot in the head. And here comes his motorcade, pulls up, and they don't know what's happening. And you hear this fellow and this woman go, he's walking. He's walking. Oh my gosh. You know, the excitement. He's okay. So it's a cool video to watch. It's not very long. And as Lori just said, his support is only growing, and it is exponentially.
Well, and this was makes and and Sunday I were talking about this before we came on air. They have thrown everything but the kitchen sink and the kitchen sink at this guy, and everything they do keeps making him stronger. Think about the lawsuits, the impeachments, the false accusations, and every time they do it, he just gets stronger and stronger in the polls. It's like insane. And then they do this. Now, again, we have no idea whether it's conspiracy or not. Nonetheless, it happened. And no doubt it happened because of all the vitriol they've been spewing over the last. Anytime you call somebody a Nazi, a Stalinist, a murderer, all of this stuff, you're basically causing people on the fringes to want to do something like this. So they created an environment where this would happen. And now that even this has happened, now his popularity has gone through the roof. They've created one of the most iconic photos of a president in history. I mean, are you kidding me? This is right up there with Reagan saying, tear down this wall, right? He's fist pumping. You just got shot. You got blood. Talk about courage. Here's a man who took a bullet for his country, and he doesn't have to. I mean, people are going to respond to that. And I think the data is showing that they have.
They are responding. In fact, they had on, you're seeing, I have on X, formerly Twitter, I have seen so many videos of people from all walks of life that are going, you know what? They're trying to take this guy out. They couldn't do it through lawfare. Now they're trying to assassinate the guy. You know what? I'm voting for him. And I've watched video after video after video of people and doing that. And if you are watching any of the RNC, it is people from all walks of life. So I was watching a little before as I was finishing dinner before coming on tonight. And there's people that are living in Arizona on the border, rappers and models. Amber Rose, never heard of her. I never heard of her until last night. And she gives a speech, and this is a woman who has never been a Trump supporter, but she sees what's going on. Her eyes have been opened. She's got 24 million followers on her social media, and she says, you know what? I'm voting for this guy. He is the one who wants to fix America. And her speech was so good, and I thought, who is this woman? And she's got this tattoo on the top of her head. It made me Google her. I bet you the Google searches were just like mine. People are going, who's this? And I learned those two tattoos are her sons. And they're her sons' names. One's Sebastian, and they call him Bash. And so people from all walks of life, fame to regular old people like you and me, we're just regular old people, Don, are turning to Trump in droves.
Well, this is the thing, too. If nothing else, you're going to compare. This is a man who got shot, jumped up, pumped his fist, and walked off the stage under his own power, compared to a guy who needs his wife to help him off the stage after a debate. I mean,
exactly.
What kind of comparison is that? Which one has the energy?
And the guy who can't, he trips going up the stairs. How many times have we watched those videos of him tripping up the stairs? And personally, it's sad. I laugh at it, but it's sad because I believe it's elder abuse, what is happening with Biden. But this is the state of where we're at. And who do you want?
he continues to give interviews and bumble and fumble. It's
Just today, in fact, he did one in Arizona
mhm.
and fumbled and mumbled through that really bad. And now he's come down with COVID, Don. He's
I
been
just
diagnosed
heard
with
that.
COVID.
Right now, is that going to be the next excuse? He had COVID the whole time.
Well, let me tell you, before he was diagnosed with COVID, Biden said, well, I'll step down if there's something medical. Boom, you are diagnosed with COVID. So are they
Right.
going to take him out with that? I
I
don't
don't know.
know.
They might take him out the way they tried to take out Trump. You put nothing past these people. I don't wish that. Don't get me wrong. In
No,
fact,
no.
most of us conservatives hope he stays for the election. We wanted
Oh,
to run against
run,
Trump.
Biden, run. Run, Biden, run. That's me.
Are you kidding me? We want you around to November 10th.
Yes.
Yeah, it is absolutely incredible. It really
Well,
is.
and it is. And so he did a lot of, did I say he was in Arizona today? It was Nevada. I don't, if I
It
misspoke,
was
he was in
Nevada,
Nevada,
right?
and multiple glitches in Nevada today.
Mhm.
Just awful. And actually, Adam Schiff has called for Joe Biden to drop out.
Wow. Well, here's the thing, though. Sonny. I mean, it's like I think it's just too late. I think they got
I
to
do
ride this
too.
horse to the end.
He's on the ballot, you know? He's
Yeah,
on the ballot in many states, and it is too late for
yeah,
him to drop out. Yeah, Lori, be careful. Yeah, be careful what you state.
right.
You know
Yeah,
what?
I
I
mean,
will tell you, I wish no ill will for Biden whatsoever. I don't wish my enemies get assassinated. That is not America. We settle all of this at the ballot box.
mhm.
That is where the choices are made, is at the ballot box. And so now the Democrats are really ramping up, trying to push him out,
Mhm.
and we're going to have to see what happens. But I guess it's going to go back to basement Biden, since he's
Yeah.
been diagnosed with COVID. I
And
don't know.
this is another one of those things. It's they are made they're sleeping in the bed they made. Had they had a regular primary like they're supposed to, they would have vetted a bunch of candidates and they have a viable candidate. But
Yes,
instead, the elites just selected the person they wanted, kicked Bernie to the side, and everybody else. And this is who they got. This is the guy that was the puppet they could control. And now here we are, and they don't have, and their bench is terrible. I mean, they probably getting rid of him yesterday, except the biggest question now is, well, who's next? There's nobody on the bench.
they're not talking about Kamala.
No, I
They're
mean,
not.
no, that's a good, at least that shows they have some smarts. I mean, she'd be even worse than him. Um,
Yeah.
or yeah, she's disliked more than him. It's
Yes.
incredible. And
So I don't know. It's the Democrats are in shambles, and it is very refreshing watching the convention. It's really refreshing because people, here you have Nikki Haley came in. I'm no Nikki Haley fan, but you know what? Come on in, because what they're showing is unity across the board for Republicans, and so the people that ran against Trump are all there. I saw Ron DeSantis speak, and everybody's coming out of the woodwork,
mhm,
and they're speaking. Of course, Trump is inviting them in,
mhm,
which Haley, from what I read, she hadn't been invited, but until not very long before, a few hours before, Trump invited her before the thing started.
mhm.
And as a person, I'm sure she's very, very nice. But as a politician, I have personally no use for her.
Well, I just feel like she's an opportunist. Um,
Yeah, I agree. But right now, we need everybody. We
mhm,
need everybody that has to vote, and we need her supporters
mhm.
supporting Trump. And, and so this is it. This is about unity. And that was something that Amber Rose said. She goes, you know what? The Republicans don't care if you're gay, straight, whatever color you are, just come on in. It's love. And so while we can agree to disagree and not barrage each other, okay, yes, I'm not speaking real nice about her, shame on me, but we do need everybody united behind Trump to save this nation. And saving our nation is more important than anybody's personality.
Well, and that's one of the things that Republicans always, seems to me anyway, who always been weak at, is being unified. The Democrats, no matter how evil and treacherous they are always unified. You got to give them credit for that. And they stayed behind a candidate that they literally kept in the basement for 4 years, so we couldn't see who he was. They were unified behind that. I mean, the entire media apparatus was unified behind that. They played that game to the bitter end. And I tell you, I don't believe that they would have changed the game and brought him to a public place where people could see him, except the polling was looking so bad because of how bad the economy is doing, how bad inflation is, all of those things. I mean, heck, quick story. My mother asked me to go get her a hamburger yesterday. So I said, sure. I went to Wendy's, got her a burger and a fry. I got myself a burger and a fry. Now, I'll ask the audience, you all tell me, what do you think that cost? Now, I don't go to those places very often, but I was expecting it to be like naive me, 10, 12 bucks. And I came back and asked my mom, what do you think that costs? And she said, oh, it was about 10, 12 bucks.
Anybody $30, I'm going to guess. I'm going to guess 30.
Now, this is no drinks, though. No drinks. If it had been drinks, it would have been 30. I left the sodas out because I knew they were killing you on sodas now. It was 22 bucks. And you have got to be kidding me. Yeah, Lori says 15. No. Yeah, once upon a time, Lori.
Right. Once upon a time.
Now, 4 years ago, it was probably about 10. Right?
Right.
9, 10. These people continue to lie through their teeth about inflation. If you had nothing else to go on except that statistic, once upon a time with a reasonably fair and balanced media, that would be enough. You can win the election on that one issue, right?
You're actually right. But we don't have a fair and balanced media. No. We have a propaganda machine that is in the Democrats' pocket that they hand out the narratives and there goes the parrot media just repeating whatever they want to say. Much like, with when I was watching live when this assassination attempt happened. And I was telling Don about this before we came on, about 10 minutes into that, I got on Twitter immediately and it started showing, or X, it started showing the Lion Legacy media that they said that, the Secret Service had to pick Donald Trump up. He fell. There was some popping over at his rally and he fell down. So those people, and it's not those people's fault that listen to that, but it's the media's fault for not saying the truth. They would not, immediately went out. Nope, don't call it an assassination because, oh my gosh, we're going to have to go with that. And an assassination attempt. And I'll tell you, on my own social media, I posted that immediately, that it was an assassination attempt on our president. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I saw it with my own eyes. I don't need the media interpreting for me what this is.
And that's maybe one of the beautiful things about the environment we're living in now. Now you have thousands of people with their cell phones. They were able to videotape the event, repost it. You got Elon Musk bought Twitter. So now it's all, 2 or 3 years ago, they wouldn't even post it. They'd have buried it. No. We just saw nothing but stories about Trump falling down, trying to equate him to Biden. And see, they're both old.
Yes. Sort of yes. That's exactly what they were trying to do.
Now they've learned they can't control the narrative anymore. Increasingly, more and more people are figuring out that that traditional press is horrendous, that it's all true that they're a pack of liars. You look at the ratings for like CNN and MSNBC, they are going in the tank.
Yeah.
And the reason for it is because of this sort of thing.
And if they would actually just tell the truth, tell the American people the truth, advertisers be damned, right? It's the advertisers, which happens to be, let's see, the predominant large advertiser. Oh, yeah, pharmaceutical companies,
Mm.
you know,
Right. Yeah, there's a
right?
trustworthy group if I ever heard of it.
Yeah. And
Unbelievable.
Pat says moving X to Texas. So, well, I got a story on that. So, in fact, Governor Newsom I'm searching very quickly here. Here we go. Governor Newsom, Gruesome Newsom, he
Yeah,
has
that's good.
passed a transgender and anti-parent. In fact, here's the headline. Gavin Newsom's anti-parent transgendered lunacy chases SpaceX headquarters to Texas. Well, it's not just SpaceX. He has also now today said Twitter is going to. Twitter's going to Houston, or Austin, Texas, I think. And Elon Musk says, I'm done. You've just gone
Yeah.
too far. And you know what? That's how sad is that for those people that are working there?
Mhm.
But that's what you get when you have a radical agenda on a state. And I recall, and I used to live there when California was like the fifth largest economy of the world. California.
Yeah.
Not anymore. It was a beautiful state. I mean, California's got some of the most awesome weather. It is wonderful, and so this new bill that he has signed that forbids the school districts or or schools from making a law that forbids them from making policy that would allow them to disclose if their child is going to be transgender at school.
Yeah.
And that needs to be challenged in court. I would say that that's unconstitutional. It's going to have to go through the courts. It's a dang shame. Excuse me,
Yeah.
a darn shame. And, so there we go.
It's
Elon
insane
Musk
how they
says, I'm done. My business is out of here.
yeah. It's the whole thing is it all starts with morality. The radical left is about destruction of the family and an attack on morality. I just posted a story here. There was in Reuters. The U.S. Senate rejected a judicial bid in New York. I don't know if you've seen that article. This is pretty interesting. Let's see, blah blah blah. Republicans won this. It was a 10-11 vote to advance U.S. Magistrate Sarah Netburn's nomination to become a life tenured district court judge. Here's the reason why it didn't go through. In the questioning, there was a 6'2" serial rapist who was convicted of distributing child porn and who transitioned in prison at age 51, and he wanted to be housed in a women's prison. And so this judge allowed him to be housed in a women's prison, which you can only guess, what happened after that, right? So this person was unbelievable. And this person was looking to get a lifetime appointment. This is, thank goodness you had congressmen who were willing to step up and say no. But these are kinds of things that,
Yes.
yeah, you just have to say no.
You do have to say no. It's about being holding them to accountability and being willing to bring up these uncomfortable information and talk about it,
Yeah, it's not even
because
rational. I
no, it
mean, just
isn't.
because,
It isn't
just
rational
because
at all.
yeah, women in prison deserve to be protected too. I mean, just because you're in prison does you don't deserve to be housed with a 6'2" man. I mean, how is that about women's rights?
No, exactly. 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 Bad, bad, bad. Well, that's a good thing. Hey, I got this crazy story.
Mhm.
It is and this is goes to more of Biden's follies, and his awful administration he's got. This is from Judicial Watch. The police chief is investigated for fraud. He is out as an air marshal deputy director weeks after his appointment.
Weeks.
Weeks
That was fast.
after.
We didn't even get out of
Yes,
the
it
probationary
is.
period. How do you get
And
fired in weeks?
Yeah, so Pauline Hanson was appointed to the position on June 14th. So this is the more DEI, I'm going to say.
Sure.
Um, Polly, and I'm all for women doing jobs, so it's nothing
Mhm.
on that. I believe this is absolutely DEI. But Pauline Hanson was appointed the air marshal, the director over that, federal air marshals, and deputy director. And on June 14th, despite a shady history that includes being investigated for fraud and conflict of interest as chief of a federal law enforcement agency. And so, you know what? She didn't last long.
Yeah.
She didn't last long. How's that DEI working out for you?
It's pretty hard to get fired in 90 days. So I got to give her
Oh
credit.
my gosh. Oh my gosh. So yeah, it's pretty bad. This DEI is failing big time, failing big
Yeah.
time.
And it's great to hear more and more people. I mean, it's hopefully nobody gets killed because of it.
Oh
Certainly, a
yeah.
lot of people have been harmed because of it
Yeah.
already. Well, you could argue the DEI resulted in the death of that poor fireman who was at the Trump speech. I mean, he got killed. So at least one person died because of it, and a couple other people, innocent bystanders, got shot as well.
Yeah, they did. So I have another story here. This is kind of interesting. This is from the Epic Times. Because of the Chevron getting overturned, Congress may have to adapt. Because following the Supreme Court ruling that curbs federal agency power, lawmakers say Congress must write more specific laws because Congress has been relying on these agencies to carry out the will of Congress. And it's been very much grossly uh, over well, heavy-handedly used. You know, when you have the agency of Bureau of Land Management, for example, telling a rancher, sorry, you don't get your grazing rights anymore because we've got a spotted frog here or whatever. You
Mhm.
know, well, there's a study out that cows, are not helping the grazing. So I'm sorry, we're going to ban that. Whatever, you get it. I'm being,
Mhm. Sure.
I'm
Well,
whatever.
the
Yeah.
awesome thing about that, though, is what it does. See, I think a lot of these congressmen have been hiding behind Chevron, so that way they don't have to get held accountable. They don't have to take the hit or take the heat for taking a position that they've been no
Yes.
doubt paid to take by these or get or the usual graft that happens with these guys. And so now they're going to have to take a stand on these positions and be held accountable for them, and people will see which way they voted, and they can get voted out, and which is exactly the way these things were supposed to work. As it stands now, they've been able to say, "Oh, the DEA did it, I didn't do it," or "The FDA did it, I didn't do it." Right now, no, you did it. you know,
Right. And so lawmakers have indicated that several reforms to the legislative process are likely to follow this Supreme Court decision. The
like
ins-
they might have to go to work. There's a reform.
right? I'll tell you what. Yeah, it's going to be different. So Patrick Henry from North Carolina, chairman of the House Financial Services, says this institution is going to have to change. How we staff committees is going to have to change, and how we work with the administrative state will have to change. And the administrative working with the administrative state, and so it's going to be interesting. We're in for some really interesting times
well,
of what's
what would be
coming.
really nice would be the elimination of the administrative state. Those are the words I'd like to hear, or
Yeah,
the
me too.
dramatic shrinking of the administrative state. That would be great.
Yeah.
What really
Yeah,
needs to
that's
happen,
what it needs to happen. I guess I could hear David saying, we don't need an administrative state. And I was about to say, well, maybe we need a little bit, And
Mhm.
so in my mind, as I was about to say that, I could hear
Mhm.
David Darnell going, "No, no, no, Sonny, we don't need an administrative state. Do away with it all." I think, David, you're right.
Well, at a minimum, I know he's listening up there. At
Yeah.
as minimal a federal state as a minimal state in everywhere, but definitely a minimal federal. Um, Now, if the state is cutting up, at least that's close to where you live, and you can go do something about it. It's much easier to get in your car and drive to Salem than it is to get in your car and drive to Washington D.C. um, or your local downtown hall or whatever. Right? That's
Yeah.
what we need to get back to.
Yeah, absolutely. Something that is kind of scary to me, not kind of, actually very. I don't know how far it'll go. I'm hoping it won't go anywhere. But today, Biden has announced major Supreme Court changes. And they've tried to manufacture scandals, portray decisions that the conservative majority made as anti-democratic, and generally act like the 2-year-olds being denied a cookie for dinner. I'm reading from this article of PJ Media.
Sure.
And but Joe jump I had a Joe Biden moment there. He has a solution to the left's hand wringing, radically alter the character of the Supreme Court. And the easiest thing to do would be to pack the court with radical left judges by expanding the number of the court sitting justices. So,
This has been tried before, you know.
yeah.
This is an old Franklin Roosevelt trick.
So, but apparently Biden is finalizing plans to endorse major changes to the Supreme Court in the coming weeks, including proposals for legislation to establish term limits for the justices and an enforceable ethics code, according to two people with the plan. He's also weighing whether to call for a constitutional amendment. The good news is we have enough to stop all that. This is why it's important you got to control as much of government as possible. And we have just a slim majority of the House.
And this
And
is, yeah, and I'm sure, and I don't know the details on this, but there's a constitutional process for this, right? Which of
yeah,
course they'll want to circumvent. But if you're going to really do that, then you have to go through the constitutional process. But remember, that's how they had Roe v. Wade for some 50 odd years. They simply circumvented the constitutional process. And it's funny how they love it when they're in power and it works for them. They weren't crying about the need to get rid of judges when it
yeah,
passes stuff like Roe v. Wade or gay marriage or any of this other insanity. But now that they're not having their way, now that the justices are primarily made up of constitutionalists, now they're like losing their bacon, right?
they
Um,
are. And
well,
they are. And I have to say, I'm happy to see it too. I'm happy to see it because it's taken 40 years to get where we are by having a liberal justices on
mhm.
the
Mm-hmm.
court. And it's just so important to get Trump back in here. And
Hey, you're
uh,
right, because we have several people who are aging. I mean, for sure, Clarence
yes,
Thomas, man, he's got to be 40 years into this. I remember him getting nominated in the 80s for one. I can't think of the ages of the others, but there's a few who are, getting to that age.
hmm,
So, we need to have the right people in power when that time comes.
definitely. So I have a little bit of good news. Well, first, let me go to some sad news. Um, and that is that Peter Courtney, longtime Oregon politician, died. He was like one of the longest serving senators in the state of Oregon. And so this is a Senator Knope, Tim Knope, issued a statement today. Farewell to my friend, Oregon political legend, Senate President Peter Courtney. Now, Peter Courtney, he just resigned a couple of years ago,
Mhm.
and maybe three, but I think only two. I could be wrong. And so he has passed away today. And Tim Knope says, I quote, having received the news that Oregon has lost one of its finest today hits hard. He is irreplaceable and will be missed. When I attended the renaming ceremony, recognizing his impressive impact on just one Oregonian institution, it was a reminder of just how much Peter Courtney has done to improve the lives of Oregonians. It is an honor to serve. It was an honor to serve with Peter Courtney in the Oregon Senate. He was one of the most impactful elected officials Oregon has ever had. He dedicated 4 decades of his life serving Oregonians and the institution he loved, respected, and protected. Most importantly, Peter had a heart for and cared about the people. He was notorious for calling his colleagues to check on them when significant things happened in our lives. He was the most formidable leader I have had the privilege to work with. He was fair, kind, and brought people together. He tried to make sure all Oregonians' voices were heard. He loved Margie, his sons, and their families as he talked about them often. Any conversation of length with Peter would include how proud he was of them. Farewell to my friend, Oregon political legend Peter Courtney. And end quote. And I'll tell you, I watched him give his speech, and he was quite emotional when he resigned. He says, "My family has asked me," and he said, "if they had never asked, I would not have resigned." He loved what he did, and in my own communications with my Senator Bill Hansel, who is now retiring, he has expressed, the fondness of working with Peter Courtney, and I had heard that he was really somebody to that tried to he didn't handle the Senate as a heavy-handed. He was a person that they negotiated with and respected. So I'm sorry. Our prayers go out to Peter's family, and sorry he's passed away today.
Yeah.
Now, there is something else here in Oregon. The state director, Cass McLeod Skinner, is the state director of the Oregon Board of Chiropractic Examiners, and she's the wife of Jamie McLeod Skinner, who is the Oregon Democrat that keeps running for office and thankfully never wins. But her wife has expressed the disappointment that the assassination attempt of former President Trump failed. And that is not acceptable. It's just not acceptable. We settle our differences at the ballot box. We don't do it at a shooter. And now people are calling for her to resign. She needs to resign. And I will tell you, libs of TikTok, who I follow and had the pleasure of meeting when I was over at Judicial Watch, which I had no idea who Libs of TikTok was. She's something else. She needs to resign. She's a government employee and she needs to resign. You don't say that about leaders of our nation. You don't wish that on anybody. I don't wish that on the illegals coming across our border. That's not humane. It's not humane treatment of one another.
And as terrible as that is, it's good in the sense that they're telling us exactly who they are.
Yes.
That's who they are. That's Marxist. That's what they believe. They don't believe in freedom. They don't believe in you're having a right to your own opinions. It's either their way or the highway or the graveyard, as it were. And they're perfectly okay with that. So these people saying those things, they're just telling us their true colors. And we need to know that. Know your enemy.
So I've got to tell you, I'm in good company because the Oregon House Republican Caucus is calling for her removal. And after this pro-assassination statement, Republican leaders Helfrich and Bonham call on Kotek to remove McLeod Skinner from the Chiropractic Examiner Board. I am so glad, because you know what? You're representing the state of Oregon. As a private citizen, if you want to say whatever you want, I guess that is your true colors. But you shouldn't represent the state of Oregon in any way, shape, or form, in any capacity, and we shouldn't be paying for that.
And see, the thing is, what a lot of people don't realize when you step back from all of this is this vitriolic type talk, this I hate them, I want to kill you, these kinds of things, they do have an impact. And again, if you go back to history a little bit, what happened in Rwanda when they had that mass genocide, basically the radio stations were taken over. I can't remember if it was the Houthis or the Tutsis, but those are the two tribes that were going after each other. But one what got control of radio stations, they were driving in cars on loudspeakers asking for the death of the other tribe. And before you know it, you had a whole nation where one tribe was going out with machetes and hacking the other ones to death.
Yeah.
And to think that that couldn't happen here is to be pretty naive. You get enough people spewing like this person, enough immoral people saying those kinds of things, and you're going to get enough fringe people that'll actually act on that stuff. So,
Yes. Yes, you're exactly right. So the good news I have here is that federal prosecutors are beginning to drop the January 6th obstruction charges after the Supreme Court ruling. And so this is, they have to meet certain criteria and whatnot, but that is really, really good. And then another real good news, I was watching the convention, the RNC convention, the delegate convention this afternoon. And his name just went out of my head. He just got out of prison, 4 months.
oh, I know you said it before we came
Worked
on.
under Trump. I told Don earlier. Peter Navarro.
All
So
right,
Peter Navarro was released today from his 4 years. Went in Florida. Then he flew to Wisconsin and gave a great speech to everybody there. And he said, I served that. I did not betray President Trump. And it was the unselect committee, the January 6th unselect committee that was trying to get him to break the law. He says, it's been standing practice, something to the effect, I'm paraphrasing, of course, that it's people that are advisors, senior advisors to presidents. That's confidence, and you're not going to break that confidence, and you're under presidential, whatever they call it. And he says, I was not going to do that. That is breaking the law if I do that. He said, I went to prison, so you don't have to.
Yeah. Well,
he says, and if you think they're coming after me and they're jailing me and they're trying to jail Trump, they're going to come after you too. So be careful, America.
Yeah, you're next. We're next.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, it's just amazing that it's come to this. But the good news is, it's come to light. I do hope there's some way for these people who were unfairly jailed that way to seek compensation. And how about jailing these people who did this? We'll see.
Yeah, we're going to have to see. It is, unfortunately, there are some protections, but there shouldn't be. When that was a fraudulent committee. That whole January 6th was a fraudulent committee.
Oh, anybody paying attention to that, to believe that, you want to believe that it was clearly a hoax. I mean, you know, you think that's what an insurrection looks like, really?
Yeah, no way. There wasn't, nobody brought any arms there,
No.
And so
maybe that's what a liberal thinks an insurrection looks like, since they don't know what a gun is.
Oh yeah, they came with flagpoles.
Yeah.
They came with flagpoles.
It was an assault. It was an assault rifle. Everything's an assault rifle, right?
Right.
I got an assault butter knife in the kitchen, and an assault knife, and an assault fork and spoon, right? Just depends on who's there and using it, whether it's an assault weapon or not.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Your car is an assault weapon too, and they're not banning
That's
those.
true. Hey, and the left, their mouths are assault weapons too, and they're not banning that either.
Yes. So Lori says, Trump says more surprises coming. I can't wait. What a man to get up. And he's being ridiculed because he's wearing a patch over his right ear. And
Now talk about tone deaf. I heard that right before we came on, that someone was making fun of the patchover. Now, if you're his enemy and you're looking to score points with the population, and you're making fun of the patch over his ear, you're just shooting yourself in the foot.
That's
That's
being a
like
bully.
insane.
That's a
Yeah,
bully.
right. Yeah. Not only that, you're pointing out the thing that people love about him. Like how
Yes.
stupid do you have to be?
Yeah. They're pretty stupid. They're pretty stupid, Don. And and I'll tell you, it's what Trump said. He said, he goes, "Yeah, I got a piece of ear missing."
Mhm.
And I when I saw the picture and I showed a screenshot of to my husband, I go, "That looks like a hole in his ear." He goes, "It does to me too."
Well, I'll tell
And
you
then it
what.
was hours later, they
Mhm.
said, yeah, he got through the ear.
If
And the
you,
surgeon, of course, has to clean that up. So we don't know what it looks like.
yeah.
And an ear is a delicate thing. It could, they blow up to look like cauliflowers.
Well, I
And,
tell you, if you ever been punched in the ear or hit in the ear, that really hurts. And anything above the neck is going to bleed a lot.
yeah.
I mean, so to lose a piece of your ear, you know, that's going to feel not good.
It is, and I'll tell you, he's went out and played golf the next day, which surprised me because too, he's got an injury there, and
Mhm,
anytime you lean over, you get all this extra blood rushing to your head and more pressure on that wound.
mhm.
And just keep praying for Trump and for his safety and for his health, and that he doesn't get an infection. And, Lori, I see that. What about an infection? I don't know. My husband said, he says, oh, the bullet gets so hot, it just kind of like cauterized the whole thing. Well, I don't know about that.
Well,
It's sterile and cauterized it. I don't know about
and I have
that.
to comment. Did any of you all see the international news that came out after this? Because remember, there's populist movements all over the West, right? And people approach Trump everywhere. So my wife pulled one. I can't remember what country it was. It might have been Poland or Hungary or one of those countries. But it said something. It had a picture of President Trump, and it said this president, like, it has a picture of him catching a bullet, and it said like "Go Trump," right?
Right, right.
And you got people chanting "Go Trump" in other countries. It's incredible. They get it. They're
They do
they're
get
under
it.
the same assault from their governments, the same elitists in their governments.
Yes. Yes, they are. So, thank you, everybody. Share the message. It's been a pleasure tonight, and watch the RNC, watch the delegate convention there, and it's exciting for those people that are there. And I'm enjoying watching it right here from my home. I didn't have to go anywhere over there and deal with all the security stuff. But because it is pretty exciting getting able to see it, I also get to push rewind, on my DVR, right? And go,
Oh yeah,
what was that they said? And rewind it. Some of those things you don't get to do in your life.
and boy, I tell you, what a cool place to be. Think about where we were, what, 3.5 years ago, right? To be where we are now. Now, obviously, the victory's not won, but what a distance traveled. We had to go through the mud to get here, but hey, people like yourself putting up the fight is what got us here. So let's keep on keeping on. Let freedom ring.
Amen. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody. All right. Let's see. Now, do I click
Yep.
end stream?
Uh
Okay.
huh.